This is a uh, executive
A
session.
special meeting
It's a
first, Dan.
special meeting for the Planning and Zoning Commission on April 9th, 2026. In attendance, we have myself, John Kriz, Tom Benton, Megan Mensching, and Christina Larson, Chris Herring from the P&Z Commission. And we also have Pete Gelderman, Steve Carl, Deanna Carlson, from the town side, as well as Sarah Carey. Do I have a motion to move into executive session?
So
Any-
moved.
Second? Anybody?
I'll second that.
Thank
Chris
you.
Herring here.
Okay. We will move into executive session.
Take
Please
a
turn.
take a vote, Dan.
Oh, take a vote.
Yeah.
Show of hands to move into executive session. Good. Unanimous on the commissioners. Yep.
Okay, we're back.
Okay. So,
So we're
Deanna,
adjourning this meeting, or sorry.
sorry,
Never mind. Go.
sorry. Deanna, Steve, thank you for your time.
Yes.
Obviously, very involved situation here, and I think we'll just move forward as discussed, and we can discuss further offline.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
leadership. Thank you.
Sarah, are you going to let BFJ into this call
Yeah,
or?
it's the same Zoom link, so just like clear for the record, we're adjourning the
Yeah,
special
we're
meeting.
adjourning the special meeting, the special session, um, moving into our pre-scheduled zoning regulation update meeting with BFJ. And commission members, whoever's not on the zoning regulation update committee, you're welcome, more than welcome to stay and listen in. If not, you're welcome to drop.
And we'll be, talking about the public workshop. So if you're planning on attending on the 21st, I definitely recommend staying to listen to at least that first discussion.
Yep. Great. Uh, Mr. Fish,
Yep.
Emily, Suzanne, thank you very much. Thank you very much for waiting.
Yep.
We had an earlier scheduled executive session that went long and attorneys on the call, etc. We just couldn't shake it quick enough. So,
No, that's all right. You gave me time for some tea.
yeah, there you go.
So, okay. So, uh, I think, Sarah, did you want to give any introduction or should we start in on things
No,
or?
you guys can jump in.
Okay. I think here we go then. Can everybody see that agenda?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought I would just introduce it again and cover some of the timeline upcoming meetings and then the public workshop a little bit. Um, and then Suzanne and Emily will go into commercial zoning, inclusionary zoning. But the big thing is the immediate time frame is that we're hoping as a result of this meeting, if this is possible, to get up online some of what we would be talking about, at the workshop. So the workshop is April 21. So if we were to give everybody a week anyway to see things online, we'd want to get it up either Monday or Tuesday, this coming Monday or Tuesday. So if that's a possibility with Sarah reviewing everything, depending on your decisions tonight, we would make any changes tomorrow and Monday and then send everything to Sarah.
I just want to know one item, Frank, is that I saw that Sarah uploaded all of the redlined zoning text from tonight onto the website. So
Right.
yeah, so that's up there already, but the other materials.
Yeah, that'd be great. So, okay, so that's the major pressing thing we wanted to just make sure of. And then we've got another subcommittee meeting um, sort of in May after, and that one is sort of after the workshop. But the workshop is the big thing we're getting ready for, and then we would have a debrief after the workshop with you on May 12th. And then we would get ready, that would get ready for the public hearing on June 2nd. So so I think we're okay. I think we're on schedule, on topic. And I thought maybe just we could talk about the public workshop then, because that's coming up soon, and just make sure of logistics with you. And I think Suzanne will be able to share a draft, just a working draft of a presentation, just so you can see that. But the thing we had talked about for the workshop here, and Sarah's confirmed this is now going to be at the Lapham Community Center. So the presentation we hope would be, we're aiming it to be not longer than a half an hour, if we can get it down to about a half an hour. And then, take a break, and then go into roundtable, breakout table discussions from about 7:45 to 8:30. We found in the past that you need about 45 minutes for those table discussions. And then what we would ask everybody to do at the table, we would have some maybe starter questions for them. But we're hoping that we could split up at the tables, depending on how many. We're assuming we were talking to Sarah, we're assuming we'll need at least 6 tables. And we're hoping that you could all sit at one table, and we would, and with Sarah, divide up into tables also. And we're hoping that at each table, there could be a note taker, and there could be someone who could volunteer at the end to sort of be a spokesperson from that table. So for 8:30 to 9 o'clock, we would have those people from each table, give a 2 to 3 minute summary of each of the tables. So that's the sort of thought in breaking things out. I think here's what you've put up now, Suzanne, is just guidelines to give out to each of the tables. Is that right?
Yes, and I think we talked about with Sarah, potentially having different themes for each table. And so people can talk about any of these themes, but having one person at each table who is well versed in this or has a special interest. So it could be someone from the commission or one of us. We can all split up, but we would have a sign on each table, one on housing and inclusionary zoning, one on commercial zoning changes and mapping, one on rehabilitation of existing buildings, potentially. We can also change these. And then one on parking standards. These are just some ideas. Anyone can obviously discuss any topic at any table, but just as a way to have someone who's well-versed in these specific topics be able to answer any questions that are more detailed at one of each table. And then potentially 2 tables could just be general or yeah.
Yeah, we're planning on, we don't know how many people will come, but we'd like to have, at least 6 tables, and assuming a table holds about 8 people, we'd have enough for 48 or 50 people in general. And if we need more tables, we can put them up, have more chairs. And then the rest of this is sort of just suggesting to people, how they can participate in the meeting. So, okay. We've gone through, I think, the map changes, right, Sarah, at the last meeting, or Suzanne?
Yeah, these are just we wanted to add some key proposed changes to the facilitator guidelines. That way the
Right.
facilitator can keep track of what some of the things that might be discussed are, such as map changes, changes in the business and retail zone, inclusionary zoning. We'll talk about this more tonight, and then parking standards, just some talking points on each to guide the conversation if needed.
And I'll submit more written feedback to you guys, but as I was reviewing this today, I was thinking about it a little more, and I think those guidelines, we're gonna need to probably just add a bullet for each, sorry, not the guidelines, the page they're on before. Just like, a one-liner of like, why are we doing this? Just, like, just so it's clear to everyone, because this is so technical, like even for myself, for the commissioners, like I think we need to just make sure that we're simplifying this for the general public. Like, why are we changing the zoning map? Just, and with all of those things. So,
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Sarah.
I would suggest 3 points, John Cruz. One is, I agree with you. We have to put this in the vernacular very much, but what were the issues that caused us to want to change the zoning rules? And what rules did we change? Sort of a side-by-side comparison, which is a lot easier. And then why are we proposing this? Sort of a three-parter is what I would envision.
Yeah. And it could be that those thoughts, Sarah and John, we might put in a slide maybe in the PowerPoint presentation so that we get that out to everybody right away.
Yeah,
That's
and
yeah.
I had some additional comments on the PowerPoint presentation that, again, I can submit it in writing to you guys so it's clear, but I think on the slides it's going to be important to maybe be a little less technical on the, we're changing the FAR from 0.6 to, whatever, and just, simplify it to we're trying to control the size of buildings and make sure they're
Yes,
not too
right.
large for lots,
Yeah.
and just, simplify it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Well, okay, we can
Agreed.
try to do that then. And I think maybe have a slide in the introduction as to why are you doing this, right? Why are you making these changes? Sort of that kind of question.
I think if we get too technical, people feel either A, we're talking down to them, or B, we're trying to confuse them and pull a fast one. Neither of which we are trying to do, in my humble opinion. And we want to keep this as simple and vernacular and conversational as possible. I think the people deserve it.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, maybe what we can do is go through this. Now, this presentation then will need to be, we'll revise it, but let's go through it so you see the whole thing. And then maybe we come back on it and get any comments or feel free. I mean, if you see something you think is too technical, let us know. Yeah. So Suzanne, why don't you go ahead through this? Well, the agenda is what we kind of just went over. So hopefully we'll start off with that.
Yeah. And then these are just introductions. And then we wanted to talk about the project purpose. So builds off the momentum and recommendations of the 2024 POCD, guides new development consistent with the community's vision and values, makes the zoning regulations modern and user-friendly. And then this is a key one here, ensure compliance with state laws.
Yeah, the state laws part on the first part, what's the requirement in terms of updating our zoning code? Is there a yearly?
There's no requirement.
It's just the POCD is every 10 years.
No,
the POCD is every 10,
The
right?
ensure compliance with state laws is really kind of a knock at HB 8002.
Right,
That's
right,
right.
right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Which we talk about on the following slide. So legal framework. So we just sort of set out here what the legal framework we're following is. So the first one is that the Planning and Zoning Commission is the legislative body that is authorized to establish and change zoning regulations. Zoning regulations must be consistent with the town's POCD. And then House Bill 8002, adopted in 2025, establishes requirements for residential developments and parking minimums, and these go into effect July 1st.
So this hopefully will give the public a sense that, hey, we do have a little bit of, or the town and all towns do have a little bit of a deadline to do something on that House Bill, the HB 8000.
That's really important. Yep.
Yeah.
This is about the process. It's a little bit, it's a holdover from the previous presentation. It might be redundant, but I would assume there's some people that didn't come to the first workshop that are now coming to this one. So the intention is to show the progression from the POCD, where a lot of the community engagement happened, into the draft changes developed by you all, into the final changes, which are voted in by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So the intention is, obviously not all of the recommendations are coming from the POCD, since many of them are state mandated, but the intention behind these regs is to be consistent with the POCD wherever possible.
So I almost wonder if you do change this slide to be a similar format, but instead the 3 columns or something like, December to now, we've been drafting changes to the zoning regs. And then it's right now we're in our community input time, and that is going on until June 2nd. And then, we have the final adoption process as that third column.
Okay. Go to the next slide, Suzanne. We could also take this timeline and simplify it a little bit more and do what Sarah, do a little bit of what you just said using the using the months there and the dates that we have. We could do that in here and maybe not have the previous slide if we want. We'd simplify this project timeline a little bit and just say what you just did.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
I'm wondering if there were maybe it's suggested or stated slightly on each of the slides, but a simple slide of this is what we're trying to accomplish, and a list of bullet points in a very simplistic manner, and emphasizing all the way that we always seek public input. We are holding community forums. Nothing gets decided unless there's a public hearing ahead of time, which many people don't understand. They think we can do this without a public hearing, which is certainly not true.
Yeah, and I think, John, we can emphasize that a bit more here on this slide and put in the public input. And we do have it, of course. We do have the public workshop here, where it would be
phase 2. It should say here public engagement.
The phase 2 should be public engagement. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we can put that right in and make sure that people understand these workshops are all leading up to the public hearing. So you're not going to do anything without public engagement.
And then we just wanted to note here that following the hearing, July through September, BFJ will work with the ZRU to draft changes to other sections for future consideration. So we want to hear from you. So this is sort of the public input engagement that you were talking a little bit about, John. So we want people to share their questions and comments tonight. Visit the project website. We'll emphasize the public hearing on June 2nd. We talked about last time the online Q&A form. So this is QR code. If you scan it, it brings you to a Google form that's a question form. And we have to coordinate with Sarah, but periodically once this workshop happens and June 2nd, we'll be posting answers to the Q&A form, questions that are submitted to the website. So people come to the public hearing with having some more knowledge of their questions answered ahead of time.
I would state also in this that this is confidential, that you do not need to provide your name and contact information. I mention this simply because some people are wary of that. And also with the, you may not know this, in the Charter Revision Commission, which is also working now, had a survey, and you had to put your name and contact number in it. And some people were uncomfortable with that. I would like to differentiate our process, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But this slide is also our opportunity to highlight as much as possible that we are making every effort to get as much public input at different stages of the process as possible. There's a lot of eyes on this whole process to the Charter Review Committee that John just referenced, as well as Town Council and everyone else, and more than you need to know, but there's been a lot of concern about how much public input and visibility there is to this zoning revision update. And we just want to highlight it as much as possible that we're doing as many meetings as possible to get that public input and using the survey as well. Just scream it from the rooftops if we can.
So hear me out. Should this slide actually be the last slide of the presentation and just left up on the screen the rest of the evening?
We can double it. We can have it
double it.
Yeah,
we could
because I
repeat
think
it, leave it at the end, Sarah. Yeah,
Yeah.
just repeat it. We'll have it twice, and I
Yeah.
think that'll
Okay.
emphasize it.
I would also suggest adding a bullet point saying, have more to say, you can always contact Sarah Carey at boom.
I feel like that's said enough. We don't need to add it.
Okay. I know you want to, I hear you, Sarah, but
And here's her cell phone number.
here's your cell phone number, yeah. But remind people they can always contact the zoning office directly. That door is always open.
Yeah.
Well, yep. Okay, so we'll repeat this at the end. Now getting into the regs. So the focus of tonight's meeting are these three topics. The first is business zones, the second is parking and loading, and the third is affordable housing or inclusionary zoning, but the section is called affordable housing. So here we would talk about our draft zoning recommendations. We'd probably want to spend a couple minutes here explaining the changes to the zoning map, the intention to consolidate the zones to make them more consistent and respond to the commonalities between zones like retail A and B, and make sure that the built environment still aligns with, the intention for the zone itself. For the most part, I think that, we can talk through what the most important things to emphasize here, but the retail zone is meant to protect the Elm and Main Street corridors. We want to make that very clear, and trying to make as minimal changes to the sort of quality of life that people really love about New Canaan in their downtown. So we can go into a little bit of what some of the main changes are here, the consolidation.
So sorry, just to go back
yeah,
really quickly,
yeah.
I think this is where, and I'm kind of thinking out loud here, but even if there's just like some sort of sentence in red at the top that's just like says the why of like why we're
Mhm.
doing this, and it's, because we're trying to make sure we have uniform, cohesive development in the downtown, or,
Right.
whatever
Yeah.
the reason is, just so it's clear as day, blasted on the presentation, and if they get lost in all of our technical talk, they can at least read that.
Yeah.
But it's
Yep.
it's cohesive development, but because this, as soon as this slide goes up on the screen, it's going to trigger fits from certain people. We need to highlight immediately the fact that we're not detracting the ability of certain landowners in the what's currently business B, business C, business D zones. We're consolidating and protecting those properties while still enabling appropriate development, to some degree, not very different from what is currently on the books.
Mhm.
And I think that it's to protect the retail zone while facilitating development in the business zones.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank
Protect
you.
the retail zone.
That's well put.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, the next slide will raise an immediate question as to whether we should do the FAR. But Suzanne, you may want to show this.
Yeah, we wanted to give just
Yeah.
a diagram here of what we're talking about. We know most people don't talk about this or won't know about what we're talking about off the bat. So on the left is just to introduce the key elements of area and bulk. So front yard, rear yard, side yard, maximum building height. And then for floor area ratio, just a quick example of how we calculate floor area ratio. It's the gross floor area over total lot size. And we show some examples here of the different ratios. You could have 1 story, 100% lot coverage is the same FAR as 2 stories, 50% lot coverage, 4 stories, 25% lot coverage. But like you said, this might be too technical. So we, I guess, defer to you all on whether or not we want to get how deep in the weeds we want to get on this. The next,
Well, I don't think I don't think this is the right place for this slide. Right.
Yeah.
As soon as you introduce the zoning map, I think we have to then follow through with a more detailed description of how those zones, the consolidation of zones, are going to be affected and what the metrics are on those. We can get into the floor area, the details on FAR and everything else, but further into the deck.
Yeah, so we'll move the floor area definition, right, to later in the presentation. I think one way to get into, just to suggest, we're consolidating business zones that have, different FARs, some different standards, and we're consolidating them into sort of one standard that should make development more clearer to do and easier to understand in the future, and then say that, hey, here's the differences now, and here's what we're trying to do. We're
Do you
trying to
have
get
that, do you
this.
have that matrix comparing them?
We do.
Yes, we
So
do.
that's why I was suggesting, Dan, that in fact that matrix might go, or something like that matrix might go here.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
The matrix is pretty detailed, though. I can show
Well,
you.
that would, I think one
Yeah.
thing we could show is, hey, here's the zones, Suzanne, and here's the current FARs. They vary from 4, 6. You've got up to a 9 FAR there. We have that, and maybe that goes.
I mean, what if you do a table that's just under current zoning, percentage of properties that don't conform to FAR, and then do percentage of properties that don't conform to FAR under new zoning. I assume the delta is in our favor. Like
Yes.
if it's 40% of properties don't conform to FAR right now, but only 30% will going forward.
Okay, we'll have to study. They'll have to get at that.
Did you not do that in one of the FAR analyses?
We did. Yeah,
Yes.
we did.
Yeah, we
previously,
did.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
did. Oh, what I'm getting at though, we probably have to explain why we're doing this, we have to probably show what the existing zones are and how we're trying to simplify those zones so that people get a big picture and then move to that. And then as we do this facilitation, what does it mean in terms of people who are, remain non-conforming? I think what can follow from that though is we have that whole section then on how people won't be hurt. In other words, if they're overbuilt. We have a slide on that.
I have comments on that slide when we get
Okay. All right.
Again, it's John Cruz on this slide. Again, the comments I think that Sarah initiated earlier is that what is the situation now? And why is this an issue? 2, what are we proposing? And 3, why do we think this is better or an improvement?
Right. Yeah. Why is it better? Okay.
You can't make things too simple.
Okay.
Because I don't think we want to get into a debate with the public of why we chose 0.6 versus 0.7. I think it's really just, more specifically like what the intent is and how much of a change it will result for the zones.
Okay. And one thing, I mean, to me, I think the 0.6 is something that's it's in business B now, it's in business D now. The exception is C, which we'll get to though with that slide, showing how the buildings. This is, I think, Dan's point that how those buildings are protected. So we can take a look at this. We can take a look at this and try to simplify. I do think though we have to show. I do think we at least have to show what exists, right? What exists here on the left-hand side. We do have to refer, hey, you have something called FAR. And then we can, put a slide in just to explain that later after this slide type of thing. And then go to, okay, what are the benefits of doing the 0.6, which is the predominant FAR, and how are we protecting people then, that in that business C zone.
I think that's the lens that we have to present all of this through, that we're protecting them, making it simpler, and not taking any opportunities away from landowners, or not making anything more difficult for landowners,
right?
Property owners.
Okay. All right.
So then this gets at the idea that Frank mentioned before, building rehabilitation or expansion in the business zone. So this would be, what about the buildings that exceed the allowable FAR? The first option is that they can rehabilitate their building as of right and use all of the existing square footage within the building. The second one we're going to talk about later in this meeting, so maybe we circle back to it. But the slide is just to show the ways that we're attempting to make property owners have options.
And so I think this slide needs to probably just have less text and probably have a photo of one of the large office buildings in downtown. And,
okay.
we just, obviously our conversation later tonight will inform what's included or not in this, but I think it needs to be a little more just aspirational of, okay, we have these buildings. Our proposal is that you're able to add an additional story if you're doing a rehabilitation of this property and just make it much simpler and more photographic, I would say.
Yeah. I think our first proposal, we have two things. One that we had suggested, as you know, Sarah, one that I think came a little bit from the commission, and that's item 2. But I think the big thing here that's easy to say is that if you're overbuilt in the zone, particularly C, and I like your idea of using a couple of buildings, maybe we just do here item 1 first. Hey, if you're overbuilt, you're going to be protected. That's the basic thing. You're going to be continue to be considered as of right if you're overbuilt as of July, as of the adoption of this code. I think that's the big thing. That's number 1. That's the number 1 thing. And I think that was the thing, Dan, you emphasized to us in one of the past meetings. How do we protect these overbuilt? There's 4 or 5 of them in business C. To me, item 1 does that. We're saying outright here that you're going to be considered, when this zoning code is adopted, anybody in the business zone that's overbuilt, that's non-conforming, is going to be considered conforming. They're going to be able to do anything they want to improve their building as of right. So that I think that's a message that everyone understands. That certainly the owner or the developer will understand that one. Then there's a second one that you had all discussed and we hadn't come to a complete formulation of, and that's that what if you have an overbuilt building and you want to add on to it? And that one we're saying ought to be by special permit because ought to go to the P&Z for discussion.
That will be a hot button with some people, and anything they think they hear about adding bulk or height downtown, they see red.
Well, I'll be honest. I don't
Many
think you
people
need,
are sensitive to it.
I'll be honest. I don't think you need item 2. Sarah knows that.
Yeah.
I've said that a couple of times. I don't think you need item 2, but we've got item 2 in here because I think that's been suggested that you had made some provisions for the hotel, and we tried to get this in here. And Sarah, you'd be able to explain that better than I. But
yeah, and I mean I can hold that discussion till we get to it on the agenda.
Okay.
We're just trying to power through this presentation.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So the next slide is getting at uses. And so we thought is important when we talk about uses to talk about the development or the application process or the permitting process, because that is really what we're getting at when we're talking about streamlining and making uses easier to implement. So in the retail and business zone, all developments have to comply with one of these permitting processes. The first one is as of right, which is the shortest, then site plan approval, and then special permit. And this
maybe, Suzanne, I'm thinking about comments that John made and Dan and Sarah that maybe, what's our next slide? Maybe we put in here, before we get to this one, maybe we put in this, go back one slide.
Oops, sorry.
Just sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we put in here that I think, is this safe to say that it's one objective of this effort is to try to make fewer things by special permit, which is the most difficult of the processes, and make more subject to site plan. And then finally, where you don't need a site plan, to make more as of right things that go to staff. So that you're trying to make things overall be less cumbersome for the applicant.
I would also suggest an example for each, if you could, so that people, something that says after they read it, okay, I get that, it makes sense.
So I think for this, it should really be more the subject of like opening a business in town or how to ensure that commercial space is properly occupied. Because I honestly wouldn't even get into housing on this because technically it's summary review for housing now, and that's not listed on here, and it's just a whole other hot potato. So it's really, we're trying to make it easier for business owners and commercial property owners to utilize the spaces they already have.
I think your example of change of use is a perfect one, something that, is already allowed in the retail zone, but by current code, we need to hear it every time there's a change of use, which is silly.
Yeah, and we have a slide on change of use or change of use, I think.
Oh, okay.
So this can be combined or maybe not combined, but reworked with the previous slide. The top is the changes to permitted uses. So we want to streamline the approval of desired uses, modernize and refine the conditions, create a user-friendly use table, and then we have to add transit community middle housing to comply with HB 8002. Then at the bottom are examples of uses in the retail zone that we're proposing permitting as of right to streamline the approval process. And we give the examples of retail businesses, personal service establishments, and restaurants.
Okay.
So the next couple slides are aimed at taking people through like what is transit community middle housing. It's probably something they've never heard about before. So what is it? How does it affect New Canaan? And what zones does this affect?
And we'll try to emphasize this. Maybe we should even say this is, in accordance with state law, HB.
Yeah, we have it in accordance
Yeah,
with
we have it
HB.
at the top.
I would just say
maybe
state mandated. Just
maybe
make it
state
clear as
mandated.
day.
Yeah. Yeah, state mandates.
There's no need to quote the law. People don't care to say state requirement.
Right.
New state law requires this.
Okay.
I don't know how in the weeds we want to get on this, but these are some proposed changes to area and bulk standards in the commercial zones.
So I would honestly not include that sentence. I mean, frankly, we upped the height to 35 feet, but there are already buildings 35 feet and taller in the business zones. I wouldn't bring attention to it. I think it's going to scare people for no reason.
Yep.
Okay.
And then
and there's 35 feet in residential zones already. So
in every residential zone.
yeah.
Right.
So
I just wouldn't. Yeah.
Do we want to include the next slide that area and bulk standards were created to mirror existing standards in downtown Res B zones?
So this is where I've been, thinking about it a little bit more and how the public can even really talk about middle housing. And I think the only thing that we have leeway on is the dimensional standards that we're restricting this middle housing by. So I don't know if the commission wants to get in the weeds about it, because that's where we can talk to the public and be like, hey, we're trying to, make it like the Oak Street setbacks and coverage and whatnot. And I don't know if that would be a fruitful conversation for the public to have, make them feel like they have some say or not, but.
Yeah, see what people think. Sarah, let me ask on this one. Basically, what we're doing in the business district is simply allowing a 35. I don't know if we have to get into, pitched roofs or anything else, but we're allowing the height, and you may not want to say this, to go from 30 to 35 feet, so that it matches all the rest of the town, which is at 35 feet, right?
One matches already the downtown that we have. We have buildings in the commercial zones that are 35 feet.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be simple to say? I think people would understand it, particularly if they realize they're living in a house that already can be 35 feet. So I would think that one would be. Do you expect a real blowback on this, or?
I think if we use the word increase height, there would potentially be concern.
Well, maybe we could say that that in that all of the residential zones, as you said, are 35 feet. We're making downtown also 35 feet.
I don't know what commissioners think. I may be overthinking this one, but
I mean, I don't think we need this detailed illustration here, but
I think it's the narrative, Sarah. I think you're right. People will argue if we say we're increasing it because they're going to say we have to defend that. They're going to want to argue it. I don't know if the right answer is to say it's just this is where it's going to bring it to compliance with the rest of the town. Make it more like it's just a formality than it is
an
or
increase.
match Yeah, match the existing built environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, match what Sarah said, match what is already built.
Mhm.
Yeah, align with standards that are already adopted across the town.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought, maybe one slide, dot points like that. We don't need the illustration. We don't need to get into any detail on.
I just think if you start to say pitched roofs and whatnot, people's eyes are going to cross and they're not
I agree with you,
going to
Sarah.
fully
That's what I'm trying.
understand.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. I would take
Yeah.
out this illustration. Let's
Yeah.
not get into pitched roofs or anything else. Basically, what we're doing is establishing a 35-foot height.
Also,
That-
if you're stating area and bulk standards already, you're confused people, I think. And the term transit community middle housing sounds similar to transit-oriented development, which many people
They do
have
not
brought
like.
up
Yeah,
as
that's
terms,
taboo.
and just be careful of how terms may be misinterpreted.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
would pull
Yes,
that
I mean,
slide out and
maybe
there
we
might
should
be-
just say middle. I understand the bill says transit community middle housing, and that's what we call it. But maybe after we say it once, we should just call it middle housing.
Middle housing.
I
Okay.
I think
like
that makes
that.
sense. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good idea, Sarah.
Plain English. Very wise.
Okay.
So do we want to talk about the separate, we can use a different word than area and bulk. Maybe we put this in, dimensions or something like that. But
I
It
think
sounds like we
yours-
should just
Yeah.
just to lay our cards on the table.
Well, say again, Sarah. I didn't.
It sounds like we should. I mean, that's the vibe
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
getting.
Let me repeat. I think we should take out this illustration.
Yes.
Start with.
Mhm.
It's confusing. And just to say the dot points that you just mentioned, that what we're trying to do on height downtown is really have something that matches what's already built. I wrote that down, and then complies with the height for the rest of the town, which is 35 feet, and it would maintain a consistent 35 feet.
My question, Frank, was also about the next line, about the fact that we're introducing separate area and bulk standards or dimensional requirements specifically for middle housing. That other,
Yeah.
that
I
was
mean,
the
I don't know
question.
if we maybe need to go full specific, but I mean, I think just saying the B-res isn't going to resonate at all with people. I don't think they'd. I know what that means. I don't even know if other commissioners know exactly what that means.
Yeah. I
You
guess what I'm trying to do is say, Suzanne, a suggestion again. I think this slide would be just make a simple point about height in the business zone and in downtown.
These
And
are two different things.
Yes,
Yeah,
they're
we're
two
saying
different things, and
yeah.
have a separate slide on middle housing. That's what I'm trying to say, just to keep this very, very simple in terms of how it goes. Because once we raise the middle housing, we're going to want to know what those standards are, right?
That's the question is, do we
And
want to get into what those standards are?
That's
Because
right. And we
Yeah,
have
and-
a slide later on those standards, right?
we removed it because it was too wordy.
All right.
But we can change it. This
I guess I
obviously
would
this is
say
an
again
old
that
yeah,
what
we're
I would
not
do is
including this, but-
take the second, I see what you're saying here. Yeah, this is going to be a tough one.
It's too
Yeah.
complicated to explain the differences between all of the area and bulk
Yeah,
standards.
yeah.
Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah. So here on this one, then I feel we have to not hide though, that we are saying that the height's going to be 35 feet in downtown. To me, that's an absolutely defensible thing to say. And the two things you've already said, we're matching what's already built. And that's what your house is built at, 35 feet, everybody's house in New Canaan. So I think that one's one that we could say on this slide, but I would drop the second dot point here.
So
that
you don't think we should talk about the
I'm not
the-
saying that. I'm trying to say, I'll say again, let's keep this one simple and let's keep this.
Well,
just-
you're already saying the second bullet point in the first bullet point, right? The second bullet point is talking about the middle housing mirroring residential areas, right? Mirroring the standards in downtown residential areas, residential B zone. And the first point, you're saying the same thing, that we're modernizing the requirements to match single-family residential development standards. So if you eliminate bullet point 2, it's not like we're hiding it. We're still stating on above that in the commercial zones, this is the height standard.
I think beyond height, the other elements that we were trying to get at there's an increase, for instance, for middle housing, the front yard setback is 15 feet. In the business zone, it's 5 feet. Or for instance, so there's other, aside from just the height, which is actually the same for business and middle housing.
Suzanne, what I'm trying to say, I don't mean to interrupt. I'm trying to say, I'll say it again. I don't think it needs to go here. I think we need a separate
I
slider.
understand that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand.
So I'm
Gotcha.
trying to get, I would just take out the second dot point here, and then we ought to discuss another slide. What's our next slide?
But so we're just gonna have a slide to just say we're changing the height to 35 feet.
That's I
And
don't know, sorry. I was
that-
trying to pick up on what the commissioners were saying. Keep this simple, not get too complicated. I'm not saying not have another slide though that says something about middle housing, which is required by state law, right? I'm just trying to simplify. I'm trying to pick up on what I've heard. So
I guess the question is whether or not we want these two things to coexist. They're saying something different, but to Sarah's point, it might not make sense to just have one slide that has one sentence on it. Well, obviously,
no. I'm not trying to say that. I'm trying to then say, and why are we doing this? What the commissioners are saying. We're doing it to match what's already built as a dot point, and then another dot point to comply with the rest, the heights in the rest of the town. I'm just trying to pick up what I'm hearing. That's all. And I think if we had that one simple slide, we get through the 35 feet. Sarah, I don't know if you think that's okay or.
I mean, honestly, I think I'm gonna have to think about this one a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's go through this. Let's keep going, and I that would be my suggestion for this slide. But the next slide, what is the next slide, Suzanne? I'm sorry, I don't have the presentation right in front of me.
The next slide is about parking standards. So proposed changes are intended to, we can add in, modernize and align with research from the ITE. And we show some examples of existing parking requirements and proposed parking requirements.
So later on, we discuss the middle housing.
Parking
later on, we discuss it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then let's wait till we get there. Yeah.
You need to explain SF and GFA somewhere in a footnote.
Yes, okay.
I mean, again, do we want to be getting this technical in the slides? Or I think I had mentioned this to you all when we had an internal meeting, like for the technical stuff like this, do we want to have like handouts for people to reference during the discussions? I mean, are we going to go like, I mean, just because even to myself, what is one space per 200 square feet? How is that really going to impact versus one space per 300 square feet? That's not, quantifiable in our minds really in a quick presentation.
Yeah, I like that idea, Sarah. We could have this on the tables, particularly the table that's going to have a parking person on it. What we could say here is that on parking standards, I mean, that's the title here, we can explain, I can explain the ITE standards. What we're doing is trying to right size your parking standards according to a national organization that has studied all kinds of uses, retail, hotel, and so on. And we slightly revised the parking standards to make them a little bit more workable for property owners and developers.
Just put that in the sentence or in a slide and get rid of this table.
And get rid of the table.
Plain English. Proposing changes to parking requirements. The goal here is to ensure that there is not too much parking with large empty parking lots, but also there's not inadequate parking so that people can find places to park at places they want to shop and work. And we just leave it at that. And if people want to know more, we come up with some slide, as Sarah suggested. We can say, well, if you want the detail, we have one right here if you'd like to look at it.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to do that and to say just what Sarah said, that for those of you interested in this, we've got a table. You sit at that table where you'll see the parking sign, and we'll have all the details of it. And then we can just move on from this without showing this. I tend to agree. This is, to me, we're not doing anything radical here. We're just putting in standards that are nationally tested here to do just what you said, John. We don't want to have too much parking, but we want to have sufficient parking for any particular use. And that's what the parking standards do.
And mention there for businesses, because parking issues for residential properties are a whole different conversation.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so we'll change this slide. And Suzanne, the next one.
Yeah, so I'm assuming there's ways that we can simplify this, but the idea that we were trying to get at is the Conservation and Traffic Mitigation District. The idea is that, and maybe we don't even have to explain the whole thought process behind why we're doing it. We just say that this is as part of state requirements. We're proposing a conservation traffic mitigation district. The reason is that you can control parking in those areas if it's designated as this special designation from the state. Maybe we don't need to explain all of
I
the
would
state
just
law.
like
Yeah.
literally do a photo of the map that we've put together, and
That's what I was going to ask.
talking
Yeah.
points.
If you have the map, Sarah, that would be great here. It's just put a
Yeah.
map.
I think it's already on our website, but I'll share it with you guys again.
That'd be great.
Yeah, so we can remove the thought process here. And
I would suggest, I think the idea of a map, of a picture, is very good. Sarah, I agree with that, but I would have some context here and say what this traffic mitigation district that the Plan and Zoning Commission can create will mean that the town can require parking for middle housing, whereas under the state law, there is no parking requirement, but because we have this district, we can impose it. There's a more parsimonious way to say that, but
we can try that.
I think it's a pitch saying,
Yeah.
hey, we have this tool. If you're afraid of an apartment being built with no parking, not going to happen, and here's the reason why.
No, I agree. Maybe we just take that thought process and say, why are you doing it? Because state law says, hey, you can't have any minimum parking requirements for certain things. But if you do the map, we can have a big map here. You can then set some minimum parking requirements, and that's why you're doing it.
I would just state that and simply say, state law says there can be no minimum parking requirements for middle housing, but ... towns do have an option of creating a traffic mitigation district. Well, what is that? But that means you set a certain area of the town where you can impose parking minimums for developments, residential developments in this district. And we want to create one, and here's the one we want.
And here's the one. Yeah. I think that's clearer.
I would also note as a sidebar that this is going to be a hot button for some people. And they may bring up the issue, why not use the second 4% mitigation district in addition?
Yeah, and I think we have to talk about that at the end of the meeting. We have that as an agenda item, so I think we can talk about that
Okay.
a little more then.
Thank you.
And then we listed here just what those actual parking requirements are that are mandated. The next slide is a proposal to simplify the inclusionary density bonus. We can say here the why. I think Sarah has said that we've heard from developers that it's confusing and is an impediment to people's understanding of development or how they can develop their properties. And then we tried to show a little bit more visually here what an example for a roughly 3/4 acre of a lot. This is what the existing density bonus is. This is what the proposed density bonus is. And as you can see, the outcome is pretty similar. Same number of houses, same number of units. in one case 3 are affordable with rounding, in one case 4 are affordable. So it's a minimal change, but in the why is really to simplify it and make
It's
it
to
easier to
simplify it, just
access.
make
Yeah.
it clearer and easier. The math, it makes the math simple.
This we need to talk about, and we will talk about with you shortly, but we wanted to obviously find a way to make this simpler. But we need to talk about the FAR for inclusionary zoning and then find a way to explain that in a non-jargony way to explain having a maximum FAR or an FAR bonus. We can figure that out once we have a decision on what that is. And then we go into the break and just introduce the roundtable discussions, which we've talked about mostly already, but these are just the instructions here, and then we can put at the end the repeat of the slide that that we want to hear from you.
Yeah, that slide that you mentioned, Sarah, we can repeat it here.
Okay. So I mean,
that's sort of
the discussion on the public workshop, I think, I would just say for commissioners, I think you'll need to follow up with me if there are any topics you're not comfortable, like potentially, being in the middle of a discussion on. Like if, you feel comfortable talking about parking, but the housing bill you're less comfortable talking about, we may need to like assign people to tables and topics just so no one's in a position where they don't feel comfortable.
Sarah will know in advance what we're being assigned to.
Well, so I'm saying, like, let me know if there are any ones that you're more comfortable or less comfortable with, and then we can do assignments from there.
What
Okay.
What are the different stations?
Chris, yeah, there's 4 of them.
There's
right
4
here.
right now.
Yeah, there's 4, and you may feel, by the way, if you have a 5th that you want to, but what we included right now is, as you can see, the housing and inclusionary zoning, and then the mapping changes, and then existing buildings and how they could be protected, and parking standards.
And I would say number 3 probably should be changed to more like just dimensional standards in general.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, I mean, I would assume based on the numbers of things, like every commissioner will also likely either have like myself or someone from BFJ at a table too, so you wouldn't be alone, but
Yeah, and it depends here too. And by the way, we didn't mean 4. These are the 4 items we thought of. If there's a 5th that you think we should have to talk about, that's fine too. And this is all going to be a little bit, if 30 people show up, in other words, the number of people coming also determine the number of tables a little bit. But our sense was to set up for six tables and have a commissioner and then staff and ourselves at each, split up into tables. So we didn't mean to, Krista, we didn't mean to assign you to a table. I think what we were saying, or Sarah was just saying too, if you have a particular interest in something, go ahead and sit at that table.
I mean, I guess that's a question for the commission. Would you feel more comfortable if you were assigned a topic so you could be prepared? Like, I know that's what we did at the POCD workshops. So I don't, like, it could be a little looser, but
I think that's better if we know ahead of time which table we're going to be at, so we can be fully informed on that. I'm also just I've got the presentation opened on my desktop here as well. I'm just going back to the very first few pages of where we start describing this portion of the zoning update. I mean, we're focusing primarily on the retail and business zones and the various zoning changes associated with that, and less focus on the residential zones. But we don't say that anywhere, that we're not focusing on the residential zones.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the intention. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
This slide was meant to show that, but we can make it more explicit to show that these are the 3 items that are affected by the House bill that we want to
Yeah,
address right now.
because Well, that we should put that on the slide, right?
Yeah.
Because that question is going to come up because, again, there will be attendees who will show up expecting to talk about the residential zones and what might affect that. They might they might know there's a meeting, but they won't know the exact topics of it, and we want to preempt, if they're there to talk about residential zones, we're not doing that tonight. You'll come back to a different workshop for that.
I mean, do we
Yes.
maybe amend the project purpose slide, which is slide number 4, and
Yeah.
just, you know, like kind of update where we are? We got, we had a plan, how the housing bill came onto the scene, so our timeline has been tweaked a little bit. July 1, we're making changes to these zones
Yeah.
because we have to.
Yep. Yes.
Maybe this can even go up
Oh,
here.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Something in a Q&A format. It's conversational, it's approachable.
Yeah.
Um,
I actually think here, if you want to, on the next slide, you can say for that reason, these are the discussion topics for the evening, right? You're framing it this
Picking
way
this
and then
up.
just very much
Yeah.
calling out, these are our discussion topics. We're going to hit them in the presentation and then have tables set aside so you can go deeper on it. So we're really just narrowing the purpose for the event,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
we're starting with a very, very 30,000-foot view and then getting right down to, so here are our discussion topics.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So we have some work to do on our end on these, but we will follow up with a revised presentation to Sarah and then get her comments and then the rest of the commission's comments,
Yep.
presumably early next week.
Okay.
Are you going to have handouts? What's the intent when you get to the table? I know when we did the POCD, we had handouts, and what's the intent for people to take information away?
We can, oh, sorry. Sarah, were you gonna?
I was just gonna say, I think we need to have like one-pager handouts for like all the key things. I mean, like we could have some printouts of the full drafts, but I think, if we have a page that's just the two maps side by side, and we have a page on parking, we have a page on transit community middle housing.
Okay.
So
all the
we
tech-
can
like,
expand.
I was gonna say,
what
like
we
all the
started to
really
do here.
technical stuff that we've said needs to go from the presentation should probably be on a handout.
On a handout at the table. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, for the commission, are there thoughts on, do you think we need to have printouts of the full draft regs? I mean, they're on the website. I don't.
Not the full regs. I think it's just the summary of what each thing is and the reason why, back to what we shared on the earlier one.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, still on our agenda, this was just going over the PowerPoint. I think we do need to maybe go through those commercial zones, which we had, as the next point.
Should we, just because I feel like we've kind of neglected inclusionary zoning and the parking standards, should we do items 4 and 5 first and then go back to 3?
Yeah, whatever you'd like. What was it? That's fine.
I mean, I just want to make sure we actually talk about inclusionary zoning.
Oh, let's do that
We've
then,
missed
yeah.
that a couple times in the
Okay.
meetings.
Okay. Do you want to go to that
Before we
section?
do that,
Oh, go ahead.
Before we do that, I know that we came out of a meeting earlier on a 6 o'clock meeting. Can we take a 3-minute bio break?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I
I'd
will.
appreciate it.
Yep, I'll pause the recording, everyone.
Thanks.
Thought. So following tonight's meeting, we will provide a draft of the revised red line text, but there's a couple questions and things that we want to discuss before we dive into that. So the first item, this is a response to something that has come up in the past about the inclusionary zoning fee in lieu. We heard from you all that you think it's too low. So the current fee in lieu is 300% of the state median income for a family of 4 per required affordable housing unit, and that equals as of the fiscal year 2025, it equaled $373,800. And so, since your current fee in lieu is based on the state median income, a percentage of it or a multiplier of it, we thought it would make the most sense to keep that formula as you currently have it, but to increase the percentage. So we put together some examples of what it could look like if you required 400, 500% of the state median income, as opposed to the current 300. So we wanted to get your thoughts on that proposal for the inclusionary zoning fee in lieu.
So I think the answer is probably somewhere between 400 and 500. I don't know what 450% is, but I mean, I think if we could get it around 550,000, that would be a pretty good aim.
Yeah, so 450%, and obviously this will increase most likely with the fiscal year 2026, which wasn't out yet when we did this.
It's 500,
yeah,
560.
560.
550 and change.
Yeah.
I will concur with Commissioner Nielsen. I think what we have is too low. And I remember when we imposed this, there was a view that, well, this is our starting point. We need to reevaluate this periodically, given changes in construction and other costs. And I think that time has come.
Great.
And increasing it, this is the opportunity to do so. So I'm on board with this.
Everything I've heard from Scott Hobbs on the Housing Authority, and I'm sure Krista, you know this already, the per unit cost for construction is already at 600,000 and steadily increasing. So
yeah, I mean, we say 450 to 650 at Affordable Housing Committee is our range.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So Krista, what should we say here? Were we at 500%?
I mean, we could just go with 500%, I guess.
500%, yeah.
Yeah, so the 450 was the 560,000.
Yeah.
And then the 500 is, above that. So
Is the 623. So
yeah.
What are you finding? I mean, where I usually see these is, what is the purpose of the fee in lieu is, what's the construction cost like, and is the 500% about right, I guess is what you're saying.
I think it's about right. I think probably developers might say that it's a little high, the 500%, but I think based on what Dan already mentioned, our housing authority has found, I think 550 to 600,000 is probably, reasonable, and 650 would really cover us. So I think let's try 500%. We can always
500%, which gives you this is a family of four.
Right. We can always, change it again in the future if we find out that that's too high, but better to have more than we need.
Okay, good. All right.
I often say it's just more, but I think there's a desire on the part of New Canaan that people living in subsidized housing should have a very nice environment, and that costs money. If I look at the, Canaan Parish, they're very nice apartments. And I think this will help provide that to these tenants.
So I will say, I get a lot of people at the counter at the office just showing up asking questions. And when they ask me to explain the inclusionary zoning and I mention the fee in lieu, I typically just give them an estimate and I say 400 per unit, fee to the town if you're not going to provide the affordable. And usually I get, a look from the developers and I'm not going to pay that, even at 400. So not that I'm against raising it to 500%. I just think that will further push developers to, if they're doing an inclusionary development, to provide the affordable unit.
Which is,
which I think is what we want.
Yes, yeah. I was going to say, yeah. Might be a good thing.
Yeah. But, from my anecdotal, evidence.
But I mean, the other thing I will say, and I'm not sure that the changing the fee affects it, but I'll just put it out there, is that we don't want to push developers to the 830G option. Like, we want inclusionary zoning to be attractive enough that it's an alternative to another way of providing affordable housing. So if anyone thinks that 500 is going to kind of tip the scales on that, we should consider it.
So, Krista, are you saying maybe we should go to 450, given what Sarah said?
Sarah, what do you think?
50%, which would bring it closer to
Um,
500.
I mean, I guess 500 is a little worrisome if we're saying the top of the range is, 650 for a
650?
unit.
Yeah.
Um,
I
so
think
Yeah, that's
it's
why I was thinking like 550 would be kind of
yeah.
the middle.
I think
What were you-
500% is completely justified considering the only time the town has bought multifamily housing lately, it cost us $725,000 a door. I'm talking about the $75 million purchase of 4 units over at Avalon. And so we can't replace those houses. I know that we talked about it at 400, but that was when the land came to us for free over at Canaan Parish. The real cost to us is over 700,000 per door. And so any developer who wants to complain across the counter from Sarah, you just tell them that in order for us to replace what he's not providing, it's going to cost us more than 700,000.
So then, John, you're arguing more, just stay with the 500%. It comes out to 623,000.
100%, absolutely. I don't think it's a deterrent for them. I mean, somebody like the current applicant, I won't say his name, but the current applicant who's talking about providing a fee in lieu on his project, it ought to be a market rate that he's considering. Because there's a huge advantage for a developer in the market to move the affordable off his project and put the burden on the town to replace that affordable housing. Huge advantage for the developer that he has the right to do fee in lieu.
Okay, so we'll do the 500%.
Do the 500 then.
Yeah.
I will say that the new fiscal year of 2026 Connecticut state median income is supposed to come out on May 1st. So before this is adopted, we can confirm that we're still comfortable with what it will be in 2026 and moving forward. I don't know how much it will have increased by at that point, so we can just update you when that comes out.
But for now, we'll go ahead with the recommendation of 500%.
Yeah.
Right, at 623. Yeah.
Good.
Okay. All right.
Sounds
Then the
good.
next one, why don't I just introduce the next one, Suzanne?
Sure.
And that is the decision on FAR bonus and the business zone options. We never decided on this actually at the last, and we given you a memo on this, which I want to credit Emily for doing all the research, and she's on the call. And if we need to get into the details of the memo, we can do that. Where we had left it at the last meeting, it was, we were discussing the proposal for a 0.6 FAR in the new business zone. And then if with inclusionary housing, what should be the bonus? And we had suggested at that point, what about a 0.4 FAR? It would bring the total FAR then in the business zone, if you did inclusionary housing, to 1. And then in our discussions with Sarah, we realized that you've already sort of approved some proposals that have a little bit higher than 1, and you have some developments a little higher than 1. So we ran numbers up to 1.5 FAR. So I don't know if you've all had a chance to look at that memo, what it gives you a range of pros and cons at 1 FAR, which is, by the way, I'll just highlight that quickly. If you got a 1 FAR, you're going to be able to do a combination of parking. You will be able to park some of it at grade. You'll be able to park the building a little bit at grade. You may have to go underground for one level part of the building, but your effective coverage will probably be around 30%, a third of the site. And if you go to 1.5 FAR, you'll be covering probably half the site, and you'll definitely need structured parking or underground parking. So one of them is simply allows more development. What we're talking about is also development at what we had talked about for the bonus is 1,250 square feet per unit of land area per lot per land area. So if you divide an acre by 1,250 square feet of land area, you get about 35 units. And an FAR of 1, as Emily's discovered in her memo, is just about that size in terms of number of units, if you assume around 1,200 square feet per unit. And the 1.5 FAR is more like 55 units to the acre. So it will give you a building that covers more of the site, which is how you can get those units in. So
Except
there's
just
pros
to
and
point
cons to
out,
that.
Frank, that there's a density limit. So you're not actually getting 55 units per acre, even at 1.5 FAR. And so we've put what that
Yeah, the
density would be in the memo.
That's right. And the density limit, Emily, again, is 1,250 square feet of lot
Right.
area. Right. So you can't exceed that in any case. That's right.
Yeah, so you wouldn't be getting
So you might be
55
getting
units per acre.
1.25, or you might be getting 1.3 FAR. The guy might try to use it in doing large lots. So that's basically the choice for you. And
I just want to like zoom out, bigger picture for a moment.
yeah,
for
bigger
the
picture even.
commissioners.
Yeah.
So right now in our business A zone, which is most of the business, like most of the zone, like most of the commercial land area that is, business zone, you have a regulation in there that basically says if you have an inclusionary zoning project, you don't have an FAR. So we ended up with Burtis Ave, who has a FAR of 1.5. And at the meeting, I think, a couple weeks ago, everyone kind of feels like maybe Burtis is too big since, we denied their request for the larger units. So, we need to put some sort of cap on it. Burtis is at a 1.5. Is 1 too low? It might be. I mean, I ran the numbers. If Burtis had to be built at a 1 FAR, they would lose all 4 townhomes and a couple thousand square feet of the apartment buildings. So,
I mean, I don't think Burtis is too big. I think those units they were trying to create were too big for what we want downtown. But I think if that's a 1.5, I'm fine with that being the upper limit.
so I guess the thing that you have to think about if that is the upper limit, if a developer wants to max it out, that means they're going to have the capacity to build all of these 3,000 square foot units. So if you don't want 22 3,000 square foot units, there has to be some other sort of cap. And maybe it's not through FAR, maybe it's, through conditions on the size of units, but
Yeah, I thought that's where we were heading towards was conditions on the size of units in the downtown zones and the
yeah, I mean,
commercial
we have
zones.
that language. I would guess like for your preference, it's probably not as, restrictive.
Right.
Something I mentioned during the
limiting
Burtis application was if we put a percentage on the blend of units by
Yeah.
bedroom for any development over a certain number of units has to have, and I'm making it up, 30%, 30%, 30% one bedroom, 30% two bedroom, 30% three bedroom, whatever the numbers are.
Yeah, we
Right.
have a specific,
Yep.
we have specific language in the draft.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
but
think
so,
it's
I mean, it sounds like from one commissioner, 1.5 isn't an issue. Other thoughts?
1.5
I
is
don't
not
have an
issue.
issue with 1.5. I think on limiting sizes, it's again the number of very large ones. So it can't all be penthouses. There may be a limit. You can have, X percent, let's say 3,000 feet, but you can't have 3X percent, 3,000 feet. So it's a distribution. Because often to make the deal pencil, you have to have some premium units that, have the big balcony and all that. I think of what happened with the one on Main Street, remember? And they insisted that the penthouse really needed to happen. They really needed that to pencil. And I believe them, but I don't want them all like that. So it's a distribution as opposed to nothing above 2,000 or 1,500. I'm less amenable to that, but simply saying there's a limit on the really big ones. That's where I'm coming from on this.
And I think, Sarah, we had some text on that. If I remember, it was that the studios and ones would not exceed 900 square feet. I think
That was in the retail zone.
Yeah,
Where there's
that
no
was-
FAR already.
right. Right.
But no, in the business zone, we did have. I can-
Yeah, I have those
Why don't
up.
we bring up the business zone? I think, Sarah, you had suggested.
I said no more than 30% of dwelling units shall be larger than 2,000 square feet
Right.
in floor area. Yeah.
Given the other challenges that a developer has, I have no problem with the 1.5, meaning Sarah's already said no more than X percent can be super large. You also have height restrictions in the downtown that would have prevented that Main Street development from going up any higher. And so if I think what are the vulnerable sites that could be built at a 1.5 FAR, it's probably down in that Cross and VD section. That's the most likely section.
And
And I'm
Pine and
imagine
Grove.
and part of Grove. And I'm imagining, well, what am I trying to accomplish by pushing it down below 1.5? I'm trying to get it to be less dense for what? Less dense sake? I think that the intent is in this commercial corridor that we're okay with density in the downtown. We're trying to fight against density on Weed and Elm, but we're okay with density as long as it's within the height restrictions. So I'm okay with the 1.5.
Okay. John, I think the only thing you asked the question of what was the reason for going below it. There is a reason in terms of what I was thinking of is, and that is the environment, and that is the amount of impervious surface you're going to end up with. What the developer is going to do at 1.5 is basically cover most of the site. He'll cover a lot of it, and then he'll go underground for parking. So you have less area for open space, less area for vegetation. However, that's just a balance. I'm not arguing that it should be, should be different. We just wanted to present the options to you, but the answer to your question is more environmental protection and getting enough area, green space for drainage and, containing runoff on the site.
Well, the issue of containing runoff, it has to be zero net addition because we require that.
That's right.
Yeah, we
And
have
if you
a
look-
very strong drainage policy, thankfully.
yeah.
Yep.
So that box has been checked, in my opinion.
Okay.
As far as impervious coverage, I hear you on that. If you're talking about the downtown area, including the business zone and the retail zone, it's basically paved anyway. So
No, I agree. By the way, I agree on the retail zone. That it's a very special zone for you all, and you do have a high coverage there.
yeah.
So I don't want to drop a bomb at 9 o'clock at night, but I did speak with the town attorney last week about summary review, which is how we now have to review these applications. There's no more special permit. And their initial interpretation of this is that we cannot apply the village district design guidelines to residential developments. So I don't know if that changes
Bye.
because that is a discretionary review. Applying design standards is discretionary, and we are no longer allowed to apply discretionary standards to residential development.
Even if it's in our existing
Because those are
downtown district.
discretionary standards.
What if it's in an overlay zone like the historic district? Then we
That
do,
would be a
right?
totally different ballgame.
Okay.
So let's
Or if
create an overlay zone.
if the standards were less discretionary. Like there are design standards, I haven't found any in Connecticut, but there are some that are so clear that like you have to have red brick facades with 10% or up to 30% wooden accents. Like if we had clear design standards that were like objectively we could enforce, not subjectively, very clear standards, we could enforce that, but we don't have those.
Even if we had an overlay zone?
If we had a historic district, but overlay zone, no. So I don't know if that changes the commission's opinion.
You mean, does it change our opinion on the FAR question?
Yes, because you're allowing Like you're allowing more development and you have less say over.
Well,
You
I
don't
think we
have
need
much
to,
say over, like, obviously we have height and setbacks, but you're not going to be able to say, yeah, break it up into 6 townhomes on a, acre. Like the way Burtis, broke it up into multiple buildings,
right.
you lose that flexibility to provide, I mean, you can still provide the comments, but like you can't deny an application because you don't like the design anymore.
So I think we need to find a different solution to that problem, be it either what you suggested, which is more prescriptive design guidelines that are codified,
Yeah.
or historic, pursuing a historic district. I understand neither of those will be in place at the time that
By
we
July
approve
1. Yeah.
these
Right.
regulations.
Yeah.
So that's really what you're talking about is, I mean, I think it would be crazy for us to not pursue one of the two options you discussed, but there's going to be a gap between
Yeah.
when we adopt these regulations and when that happens. And I guess that's what we need to think about is how do we handle the lag time? And that,
Sarah, can I ask a question on the attorney's opinion
Yeah.
now? If you had design guidelines and they become mandatory, who interprets that? That would still be a discretionary decision, wouldn't it?
So, I mean, I didn't go into a
Yeah.
super in-depth discussion with them, but right now our design guidelines just have photos of various unique features that we like and could be incorporated. But if there were, like I was saying, if there were clear standards that, all facades have to be either this material or that material, or, you could have up to 30% of the facade be this type of accent, and it's just clear, like you either meet the requirement or you don't as far as like building materials and roof lines and things like that. I mean, in theory, the person interpreting that would be, um,
You.
no, I mean, I would say the
Yeah.
commission, if they're doing the summary review, it would still be the commission
It
at
would
the
still
end of
be
the
the
day,
commission then, yeah.
because they're the reviewing body.
But doesn't that by definition make it a discretionary review? It's up to the commission.
No, because I mean, they're still reviewing it to confirm it complies with setbacks. Confirming it complies with height requirements and whatnot. And I think I don't know how feasible. I mean, I've seen examples from like major cities across the country with clearer design standards that are considered objective.
Derek, can you help me understand what would go into that process? I mean, that seems like you're really sweating details at so many levels. I just think
Oh
back
yeah,
to the paint colors we had for the awnings when that ice cream store went into town. Like
yeah.
that
I
seems like
mean,
a massive project.
yeah.
So I'm curious, have we done that before? And if so, what was involved to get to an agreement?
No, the closest we did was the village district
District
design guidelines
guidelines.
that we have. And I mean, I wasn't, Dan, I think you would have been the only person that was
I was
around for
around, yeah.
that. Um,
That was a year-long process.
and I mean,
Yeah.
a historic district for the whole downtown, that'll take at least a year. And you have to get, I think, 80% of building owners to agree to join the historic district. And I mean, half of the the business district is owned by random LLCs that may or may not be based in New Canaan.
Yeah.
but I mean, regardless of whether the FAR is 1 or 1.5, you could have an ugly building that's a 1 FAR and you can have an ugly building that's a 1.5 FAR. Like, I'm not sure that I see how the FAR is a solution to this problem. I mean, perhaps what you're saying, Sarah, is that maybe we start cautiously knowing that there's going to be a period of time where we may have less control over the design, and maybe that does merit the 1.0 FAR in the
Or
near term.
something in
Yeah.
between, maybe something a little higher
Yeah.
than one.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not opposed to still doing the 1.5 FAR. It's just I wanted, to make sure the commission had the full picture. And I think I agree with you, Krista, that whether it's a 1.0 or 1.5, you could still end up with an ugly building. It's just it would be a larger ugly building,
Right.
potentially at 1.5.
Right. Does that change anyone else's opinion?
No, I'm just,
Okay.
have you, Frank and your team, have you run into this in the past in other jurisdictions where
Not this way.
this
I
type
haven't.
of village district guideline for a town would be unenforceable if it was a residential development?
Well,
I'm
this
questioning Bertram
state,
Moses.
You're questioning, sorry?
I'm
attorneys.
questioning our counsel.
Yeah. I'm so used to, anything going to a commission in terms of site plan or in terms of special permit has always been considered, as far as I know, by the attorneys I'm working with, a discretionary decision. That's
Well, and
why
I mean,
we
that's the
have a
thing. It's
commission.
not,
Yeah.
it's technically not even a site plan anymore. It's this
Yeah.
new thing called summary review that
Yeah.
isn't anything we've ever had before. And, what the attorneys also told me is Westport, they've decided that only staff are going to approve residential development in commercial zones. They're not even sending it to the commission anymore because it's supposed to be so cut and dry, which I'm not recommending.
Right.
I don't think we should do that.
That's
Yeah.
stupid.
I
Yeah.
don't want to do that, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's how much, the
That's
state
what you get when
really,
you get an elected zoning board.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
When-
I haven't.
When you
So
don't have any confidence in your zoning board to do the right thing.
even in
Sorry,
Wilton,
I have to
we
throw
did
that in there.
in Wilton, Connecticut, we did a form-based code, which is more prescriptive. But even there, it's so much of it is up to the discretion of the P and
Yeah,
Z that
of
it
course.
ultimately is a discretionary decision. I mean, if you're discussing anything, to do with color or materials, to be non-discretionary, someone would have to, which I think it's bad planning, bad design. You would have to be telling people what they must do in terms of those materials. I would
Yeah.
say it guts the purpose of a real design review.
I mean,
But
to be
agree.
honest, it may not though for our retail zone because I would say 99% of the buildings are red brick.
they're all red brick, right? Yeah. Yeah.
But elsewhere,
For the
I
business
don't.
zone,
Yeah.
yeah, for the business zone, it matters. But I do agree with what Krista was saying, and that is that, the difference here is whether a small building or a big building, either one of them could be a bad design. So I think this question is not that it's not directly related to FAR, I guess. So I think a
Look, I
little
mean,
fear,
I'm not trying to blow all of this up, but
Yeah.
I mean, we still have the option to do a building moratorium if, if this new information is scaring the commission and we need time to,
A building
Yeah.
moratorium in the business and retail zone?
yeah.
Hmm.
So Darien, they just enacted a building moratorium for residential developments over 25 units for the next year. So they could get their act together.
All right, so what would the purpose of that? I mean, the purpose would be we could finalize our commercial regulations and possibly codify design.
Design standards, yeah.
Why 25 units and over? Why not a smaller threshold?
I haven't spoken to Darien specifically, but I think it partially just had to do with, I mean, everything that's been going on there. I
Yeah.
think they have like 400 units either under construction or permitted to be under construction, and they, for whatever reason, they put the limit at 25 units or smaller. We wouldn't have to do that. I'm just saying that's what Darien did.
I would think though you're close to, I would
I
think
just
you're,
don't know if the village district issue,
the village district issue.
creates.
But you would be holding up this other work. How much of for the moratorium, you're supposed to have some, and I think the new state law obviously is a reason, but what I'm getting at, I guess, is if you take the time to look into this, what others are doing, and on the design issue, I mean the village design guidelines, that's going to take some time, but it doesn't preclude you if you've got a consensus, which I think you have a consensus on much of this of doing. I would think you might want to do it and then come back on those design guidelines, given your attorneys. I'm sort of with Krista. I don't think the design guidelines affect whether this is going to be a large building, a small building, and the development controls we're suggesting now, I think, are fairly good. You've spent a long time on these. and so you would not be putting in, you would be keeping your guidelines until you can develop something that your attorney, I feel, feels is legal. You can do this in two parts, in other words. You can do an initial area and bulk standards, height, so on, by July 1, and then just hold off on the design standards and develop those over the next year.
And if we have an issue with, I mean, I don't think we will, but if we had an issue of a lot of residential development coming in the short term, then we could pursue a moratorium until we get that design piece locked down more.
Yeah.
Which I'm saying may actually be a reality.
Do you think we're going to see an influx of applications?
I'm a little concerned, yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Most of Cross and VD just got listed on the market.
It's been on the market for a while.
No, I think that's pretty new.
Not according to the $40 million price tag that Santos put on it.
It's a new agent.
Okay, 42 million.
Okay.
Okay.
When I think of design standards, by the way, I don't think that even we agree on what color something should be. When Burtis came, they said these are the materials we're going to use. When the Main Street application came, they said these are the materials we're going to use. And if you go back and watch the tapes, even the commission, don't always agree. Same thing with the ice cream store. But what I think we can enforce was when the New York Times took a picture of the fake wall in front of the View. And we didn't really have a design standard that said all of the stone walls in that area are real stone, and stamped concrete is not appropriate in this neighborhood. And the developer was able to say, I don't care. And so I would like in the future, we have all these nice real red brick buildings in the downtown. It would be a shame if the next development was able to cut corners on materials and make something that's obviously cheaper and out of character with the neighborhood. So at the very least, I would like to enforce sort of a materials standard, even if I'm not going to pick out color swatches.
What I've seen other jurisdictions do is enforce a materials standard, but enforce without getting too specific on what's allowed, get very specific on what's not allowed. Like anything in the downtown district, no EIFS, which is stow and exterior insulation system, right? We don't want EIFS. We don't want plastic cladding or vinyl siding. We don't want XXX.
Okay.
We just ran into that at the TD Bank building, and we were you could tell that we were unsure what these materials were going to be that were in front of us. We weren't concerned about the volume or the size of the building,
right,
but we were like, well, what is that, on the facade? And I still don't know what it is, but
well, to that point,
I couldn't have an opinion about it.
That could also help us with the concerns we have over residential development not having to conform to the village district guidelines. They would have to conform to a materials exclusion list for that zone.
Yeah.
Because that's completely objective, right?
Yeah.
And we include in that list specific materials that we know developers will turn to because they're cheap as chips.
Yeah.
Without having to require only brick or only stone or whatever it might be.
Yeah. To develop something that Sarah or the attorneys, I guess, were wanting that is not open to interpretation. That's difficult to do. And it may take some time. And I think that you'd have to look at, but it does seem to me that it makes sense to at least go forward on the area and bulk standards, and to get those in place if you can by July 1.
I agree.
Yeah. And I think here I'm hearing a consensus around the 1.5. So if you're comfortable that way, we can make that, if we make that decision now,
Mhm.
we can go ahead and put that in the in the slide presentation. We then don't have to get into any details with the public. Just describe what it is.
Okay.
All right, good. Well, you made a decision there, and
Only took 45 minutes.
yeah, that's all right. Well, listen, okay, yeah, I realize it's 9:30, but we've got a few more issues
Let's move
for you.
along.
Yeah, let's move along. Yep. Okay, so we're at 1.5 on the FA. Yep. And then we had did we finish the commercials? No, I don't think
No,
I don't
we
think
haven't. Yeah.
I don't think we did. We need to go back on the
So does
Uh,
the commission need to be walked through every change that we made, or how would you all like to handle this? I mean, I can send the updated drafts, but all the comments that got sent to me, no one had conflicting comments, so we were able to incorporate everyone's into it. We
So
can
are
send
there
you.
key areas that you still need feedback on, or is this just us
Yes.
blessing the final? Okay. So
There's
so I
a
would
couple things
say
we highlighted. Yeah.
just go to the areas you have questions on instead of reading us everything.
yeah, I
So
think the
Mhm.
big question we need to come back to is what we said we'd come back to is that in the commercial district, we wanted to protect developments. This was Dan's point that are non-conforming. We've got language on that, which I think is, well, I don't know, Sarah, you may have had some further changes on that, but I think that one was clear. It was item 2, which would be by special permit, allowing an additional floor in the business district for those buildings. So I think that one
I
was
think
not
you scrolled
resolved.
past it, Suzanne. Or sorry, maybe you didn't. My bad. Sorry.
It's okay. I think it's
Yeah, so I think remember this was the hotel dimensional exemptions that got written in. And I thought where we left it last time with the subcommittee was we should just present it to the public and get their feedback on what they would like to see happen with these, 1970, 1980s, leftover office buildings. How does the public feel about providing them extra options for expansion? Because I feel like when we last spoke about it, the commission wasn't really sure if they wanted to incorporate it into the regulations or not. And
If you allow that, Sarah, does that almost encourage people to retrofit them versus tear them down and put something more modern and nicer up?
yeah, so I mean, we're talking about 4 or 5 buildings in
Right.
total. And I mean, this was needed, according to the developers, to facilitate the Locust Ave building, the hotel to happen. Um, so I mean, I guess there's an argument that yes, this is necessary if we want to see them retrofitted and refurbished. And I mean, realistically, is a commercial property owner going to, like, I don't know, does the commission want to see these office buildings torn down? I mean, is that financially feasible? Are those buildings tear downs? Like, does that pencil out for developers?
Well, I guess the first thing is to tear it down. What can they put in its place,
Right.
right? And can we control that? If they take it down and all of a sudden now there's ways that someone can game the system, we get another, I won't call it 30G, but something that is not favorable to the town, then you're right, we're better off letting someone refurbish what's there.
No,
If
so I mean, if they
you don't
tear
have
it down, they have to comply with our standards, you know?
Yeah, that's right. If they tear it down, they're going to have to build, if these go through, the standards we're proposing for the district. If they tear the building down, they're going to have to, whatever they build is going to be limited to an FAR of 0.6.
Or 1.5 if they do an inclusionary zoning
And,
project.
oh, yes, or 1.5 if, well, they'll all try to do that inclusionary zoning at that, and
And
1.5.
I think, the hotel was a unique case because obviously that's not inclusionary zoning. So I mean, this is really, is there another scenario where one of these buildings is going to need to be converted to a different commercial use?
I don't know.
Think about the Smith Corona building across the street from it. That's been a challenge to fill for many years. And but
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to replace it with something quite as tall, I don't think. I believe that's probably at the height limit. So I don't have an opinion on whether it's not so beautiful that it should be, preserved. And so I'm agnostic on whether it's a building like that, an ordinary office building, or the Moran Towing across the street from it. Not an attractive building, but if you took it down, you wouldn't be able to replace it with something that big. And you certainly wouldn't be able to replace it, I don't think, with the integrated parking decks. So
And I mean, the regs for the last 20 or 30 years, I would say, have deemed these buildings non-conforming to height and even to FAR. And they've just kind of sat there as is.
Well, the
So,
repositioning of that building, I don't think it's going to be to tear it down. It's going to be a developer that's going to pick it up and gut the thing and turn it into residential development.
Right.
Similar
much like
what's
the
happening
hotel, much like the hotel, who
Much like
said,
the hotel.
I'm going to
again,
use
with
it.
residential development, you have extra incentives. It's just, was the hotel a one-off and we need to just keep this in the regs as the one-off that it was? Or,
Well, we have to be able to my point earlier about this particular zone and the property owners in the zone feeling like they're not being handicapped by the new regulations, right? We still have to give them the ability to do something with the buildings. And
which again, I would emphasize they're already handicapped in the business C zone. They're already non-conforming. Being in the business C zone doesn't help them.
Yeah, but Dan,
first part of
Suzanne,
this-
can you go, right, you're reading my mind. Just go back to the first part, Dan.
No, I understand that part. And I'm, again, like in today's regulations, if someone was trying to redo the interior of a building, they would be allowed to do that. I understand that this makes that clearer, but I mean, the point I'm really talking about is expansion, not preserving what already exists.
And that
Right.
expansion piece is beyond what they're allowed today.
Yeah.
So we're giving more than they actually have today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's right. And in addition, what Sarah said is important. If anybody does residential for which there's a major, there's sort of a major market for, they're going to get a huge FAR. You've just decided on an FAR of 1.5. So they could build actually that would be more of an incentive to tear the building down, but what we're providing for them.
not in these cases, the buildings are the full footprint of the site.
Yeah. Well, an FAR 1.5 will be the full, close to the full footprint of the site. You're right.
So my inclination would be to take this out and kind of leave it on the shelf. And if we come across a situation where we have an applicant that's probably coming with a text amendment to change our zoning regulations so that they can expand one of these buildings, we take this off the shelf and we have it ready to go. But I don't know that I'd put it in right now.
So we may have to, that's fine if we go that route. We may have to preserve it in some capacity for the hotel just so they can get a building permit and whatnot.
I'm sympathetic to Commissioner Nielsen's comment. I keep thinking, can I state in a sentence why this is a good idea? And I struggle a bit. I think anything that happens to any of these big office buildings we have, of which there are what, not using all the fingers of one hand to count them up, is really going to be, I think, a unique decision for the commission, and we'll need to treat it as such. That's my guess is how it'll work out.
Sarah, I don't know on the hotel revision, what's the status of that application now?
So, I mean, they have an approved special permit, but I don't think they're anywhere ready to go with construction documents or anything like that.
So they're able to build, they're okay.
Even if we deleted this from the regs?
Yeah, if they have a special permit, they've
They
been
do,
approved.
yeah.
They've been
Yeah.
approved, so they're not affected. So if the commission
Okay.
deleted this, the hotel can still happen.
Okay.
I think you're safest deleting this, to tell you the truth, but
That'd be my vote.
Yeah.
Great.
okay. Well, that was the only big, I think, I shouldn't say it's the only big, but that was the one we wanted to come back to because it affects the slide presentation. It makes the slide presentation much we straightforward. Yeah.
I think just one other thing to highlight in the commercial zones that wasn't a comment from any of the commissioners, but Suzanne, if you want to scroll up to the business zone parking as an accessory use.
Yes, these are new.
Yeah.
So we might want to just explain quickly what the thought process behind that is. So Sarah provided a great comment to remove, and this was included in the red line edits we sent, but to remove instead of having separate.
I think it's in the business zone really
Yeah.
where it's impacted.
Yep. Instead of having separate uses for structured parking, public or commercial parking or underground parking, instead just having municipal public parking lots as a use, and then making it as of right if it's, or sorry, site plan approval if the municipal parking lot is on grade and one level, and then special permit if it's a multi-level parking structure, and then having a separate section on the end of parking as an accessory use, because in reality, it doesn't need to be in the use table. It would be an accessory use to one of the principal permitted uses. So having 3 different approvals processes for different types of parking, that would be supplemental to something like a restaurant or a retail business. Surface level parking as an accessory use would be as of right with a zoning permit. Underground parking would be site plan approval with conditions that we can review together, and then structured parking would be a special permit approval.
No.
I know this stuff is important. I get why we're doing it like this, but I do think that it kind of acts a little bit as a disincentive for structured parking, which is probably actually maybe never mind.
We already require a special permit for structured parking.
Okay. Yeah,
and
never mind.
We actually require a special permit for underground parking right now, so this is an
Yeah,
easy
we're
regulation.
going in the
Okay.
direction you want, Krista. We're just underground parking would now be just site plan.
Okay, thank you.
Sarah, did you have a specific comment or something that you wanted to change about these? Or was it just yeah.
Oh no, I just wanted to point it out to them since they didn't know that I was recommending this.
Yeah, no, I think it was a good point.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a couple other minor things that we've highlighted in yellow here that we can just review very quickly. The first one, motor vehicle dealerships. So Dan, you actually pointed this out in your comments that the definition and the conditions that we have are not currently conforming with one of the operating vehicle dealerships, and that's my understanding. Because there are on-site repairs, and we're conditioning that there should not be on-site repairs. So we highlighted this so that we could just ensure that whatever we're putting in a condition here is actually makes sense with what exists.
I would think though, since we changed the title of motor vehicle, we may want to change car sales and car dealerships to motor vehicle, unless there's a reason to say car.
No, we can change that. Yep.
Unless other people.
I mean,
object to that.
the only issue is I think about like foreign car. I don't know if they're selling those cars, but those are out all day.
Yeah.
Just
Which ones is this now, Sarah?
or like foreign car on Pine Street.
Yeah, they've been doing that for decades.
Yeah.
Best I can tell.
Yeah, they do sell used cars there. So it's an
Yes.
example of your D, like if people. So
But I mean, honestly, that may just be a non-conforming use, so we'll just leave it as is. Because if that's been going on for decades, I
As
don't
long
know.
as I've been in town, I've been in town 30
Yeah.
years, and they've always done that I can remember.
And
I would just
not-
say leave it.
and
Honestly,
they're actually not their own cars for sale. Those are cars on consignment.
okay.
So are we comfortable just removing the on-site repairs as a condition? And
Yes.
we removed that from the definition as well to be consistent. Great. Okay, the other item highlighted, Dan, you made a comment about maybe wanting to have a cap and upper limit on outside dining as an accessory use.
Correct. Outside dining as a percentage of the interior, permitted or allowed dining.
Oh, okay.
I mean, should we just have that be regulated by the building code since there are occupancy limits?
Well, they're not for outside dining.
I mean, my understanding from talking to the building official is that, like, let's say your max occupancy is, for like bathrooms and whatnot. Also, like
Yes.
your kitchen for the health department, like you have to have a certain, number of appliances based on your seating capacity, is my understanding. So,
But what I'm saying is, I don't think our current building code, I know the IBC does not, they don't account for exterior dining to be incorporated into the plumbing count requirements.
oh, they don't? Okay.
No, only by certain jurisdictions if it's specifically defined by that jurisdiction. I go through this all the time with
Yeah,
Chipotle
I'm sure. Yeah.
restaurants.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
only if the specific jurisdiction requires it to be included, then that's the case. But if it's
Okay.
not written, it's not required.
So
Okay.
Dan, are you saying you'd like to see something like, or not more than 20% of the seating capacity can be outdoors? Or
I don't know
something?
what the right percentage is.
Yeah.
I want to
I was
avoid.
just using that as an example, right?
Yeah,
We
as
we
an
have
example.
some restaurants like Pressburger that have 2 tables inside and 2 tables outside.
Yeah.
So it's going to be difficult.
So-
And I'm talking about 2-person tables. I mean, they only have a capacity of 4 inside and maybe 4 outside.
To
So-
be clear, this would be on private property, not the sidewalk cafes. The Board of Selectmen has the authority on the sidewalk cafes. So I mean, I appreciate the Pressburger
in
example, but
determining
this
the
would be
size.
like, what?
The
How about
Board of
Roger Sherman? Would it restrict their ability to host a wedding outside?
So I mean, everything would be grandfathered, that already exists. So it would be more for like if there was a new restaurant that was trying to establish a patio outside. And I mean, they're already restricted by parking on private property. So, if you have 50 seats inside and you're going to have a patio outside that's, 600 square feet, you have to have that parking to limit it as well.
I'm inclined to not restrict them unnecessarily. I think they have enough trouble as it is. And if they want to put more seats outside and they have the room on private property, like the Roger Sherman, like the next example of the Roger Sherman, I don't see why we should be unnecessarily restrictive.
I mean,
I
I could also talk to the building official and the health director to see if they have a number that would make sense to them, whether it's 20%, 30%, or whatever. Because I know we've talked about it internally that, from a staff perspective, having these massive outdoor dining situations do cause problems. So I'm happy to ask.
Yeah, I think it's worth asking. I do agree with John. If it's, on private property, then I would have a hard time trying to tell them how much dining they could use outside. I was more concerned about the sidewalk dining that
okay.
restaurants are
Yeah,
jumping
yeah.
on the various bandwagons. But if you're saying that the selectman's office is the only one that dictates that, and we can't control that, then that's so be it.
Yeah, so I mean, I can bring that sort of thing to the Board of Selectmen to change, so we can talk about that
Yeah, that's
at a
fine.
different time, but that wouldn't be changed from this regulation.
Okay.
Okay.
The next comment, we've touched on this briefly before, but this is setting a cap on on dwelling units within mixed use. So not more than 30% of the dwelling units shall be larger than 2,000 square feet in gross floor area. Sarah, I believe this was your suggestion if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I mean, I came up with that after the whole Bertus Ave application 2 weeks ago. Just kind of looking at their numbers and what the commission seemed to be okay with versus not.
I agree with this.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, 30% is a pretty big number too, so
It is.
I think
Yeah.
I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it.
Okay, great. We went over parking as an accessory use in the business zone. Only change we wanted to highlight here. Oh yeah, Dan, we added in trash enclosures and dumpsters, but they can't be in the front yard setback. We already went over building rehabilitation. And then the one other edit, I think that's it in terms of things that we wanted to review with you all. As you probably noticed, we sent over, oh, sorry, one other thing in the retail zone, the same thing as the 30%. Sarah also proposed saying that no unit shall be larger than 2,000 square feet in gross floor area for dwelling units in mixed use development.
In the
We
retail
already
zone.
had
In the retail zone, yes.
in the retail zone, yeah.
Yes, agreed.
Okay.
Would
Does
that,
anyone?
How would that
Was
affect
that,
the Raymond
ha-
building
What?
when we approved?
oh, 112 Main, yeah,
Yeah.
I was about to ask, what,
That would make that approval. So I mean, again, that approval stands for 5 years from when we approved it. But if someone 8 years from now wanted to do the project, it would impact, I think, the penthouse unit.
Housing, the size of housing units.
so it would impact one of the units in that development?
I think the penthouse, yeah.
The penthouse only, okay.
I'm wondering if we should,
They'll manage.
instead of saying no unit, should we say 10%, 5%, 1 unit?
I mean, like from my perspective, we want smaller units. This is the retail zone.
I take your point.
Yeah,
2,000 square feet is a really big apartment.
it's larger
Yeah,
than my
that's a good
apartment by a
size.
lot.
It's larger than the average house in America.
True. Okay.
But
Okay.
probably not in New Canaan, but yeah, I take the point.
Yeah, I know.
So we'll go ahead with these changes. Give us a little more time though on the PowerPoint. I think we need to think it through and get the words down right. But we'd like to get these changes to Sarah if we can on the text. I mean on Monday or Tuesday, so that we can get everything up online. As we said, we've got a lot of stuff up online, but it'd be nice to get the final stuff online so the public sees it before the meeting, before the workshop.
The one last thing that we haven't gone over is parking standards, which I don't think we need to go into detail on, but I just
Yeah,
wanted
let
to
me
address.
say on that,
Okay.
Suzanne, what I wanted to, and I think what we should say to the public on this is, and I don't think we need to go over all these standards, certainly in the slideshow, but the text, all of this is based on trying to right size the parking so that you don't get too much parking and you don't get insufficient parking. And we use the ITE standards from DC, and they're the best standards there are. They are the national standards. So I think unless you have some questions on this, I think if you read it over, if you disagree with something, let Sarah know. But I don't know that you've had this for a while. I mean, we can go through every one of these, but I think it's probably not
Maybe I'll just
necessary to go through the chart.
Yeah, I don't think we need to go through the chart.
Yeah.
Maybe I can just point out a couple of things that the commission can think about
Yeah.
when they review it. The first one is, Krista, you had mentioned before the loading spaces. We added those back in, and you can take a look at them, but we ran them by the traffic principal, the traffic expert in our office, and he's comfortable with these. They're the same for the most part. So you can let us know if you have any questions on those, but we tried to keep them as similar to the ones that already exist as possible. The other item that came up in your review, Krista, was about the permanent shared use reduction. We think it makes sense to keep it as a special permit, but the other option would be if the commission wanted to make it a site plan approval for reduction of required parking spaces. So that is one item that you brought up, Krista, about a possibility
And
of changing.
I don't actually recommend that we change it to site plan. Just the way these regulations are written, they're very clearly written to be special permits. It's, they're discretionary special permit findings. So we would have to rework all of that if we switch to site plan. And I think, the next section, which is parking needs assessment, kind of addresses another avenue.
Yep. So the parking needs assessment, we're working on tweaking number 2 here. Sarah sent over some thoughts on that we'll incorporate into the next round of edits that you see. But the idea here is that there's two items on the parking needs assessment. The first one is that state law requires that anyone can submit a parking needs assessment by a professional traffic engineer or consultant to show if they think that there's a smaller number of parking spaces that they think their development needs. And we came up with a list between our conversation with Sarah and state statutes, all of the items that we would want someone to have to include in the parking needs assessment to ensure that their finding is sufficient. So we advise that you take a look at that. And the second one is one that we'll edit in the future or up for the next round. But the point of that one is to really get at that idea that I think Eric mentioned last time about what if there's a change of use. So in this case, if there's a change of use, let's say a retail changing to a restaurant and a restaurant has a higher parking minimum, could they submit then a parking needs assessment to retrofit that use to fit with the existing parking and still be a viable use if they can prove that they don't need that extra parking? So those are just the two items there that are new that you'll be seeing in the next iteration. Other than that, I think
Can I just ask on that one there? Are you
Yes, yeah.
saying that in that model there, if you take a retail store and it changes to a restaurant or it changes to a workout facility,
Mhm.
you no longer are requiring additional parking, even though the use has changed? Is
Yeah,
that-
so it would essentially mirror what's in number one, where you would have to submit a parking needs assessment, and the language is very clear that you would need to, confirm the maximum number of employees and patrons at peak hour and like a bunch of other criteria specific to the business, and then
So
providing
there's
that
still a check and
information.
balance, but it's taking it out of our
Question would
hands
have to, yeah.
and making it easier to debate and approve.
Yes, and that was a recommendation from Commissioner Knowles, who couldn't be here tonight. So I don't,
Yep,
I
and
don't know how other commissioners feel about it.
the commission would still need to approve it. It wouldn't be a given that they would need to take a look at or you all would need to take a look at the parking needs assessment and make sure that you find it's sufficient.
And they would
in
need a
order-
licensed, traffic professional to stamp it and say, yes, this isn't going to have an adverse impact on public rights of way or adjacent properties.
Okay.
And it's only in the business zone because remember, there is already no parking requirement in the retail zones.
That's
Yeah, I think that.
That's
Anything
it on
else,
our end,
Suzanne?
yep.
We had anything?
One last question for me. The reduction in parking space size, was that something that we drove from 20 to 18, or was that something you all proposed?
That's something we heard from Sarah that so currently it's a special permit, I believe, to get the parking reduction from 20 feet to 18 feet. And 18 feet is the national standard. That's what most places use. And we heard from Sarah that many people were applying for that special permit, and very few people were actually able to meet the 20 feet stall depth. And since it's already the national standard, we figured it made sense.
The majority
Yeah,
of the projects you're approving already, Tom, are 9 by 18. That is truly the standard, and
Yeah, it
it's
is.
been a hardship for many applicants to have to tack on that. Well, I mean, a hardship, that's kind of, an exaggeration, but it's just been another thing that people have to apply for a special permit for.
Key, Tom, the key in the standard is that, if you have a double loaded bay, you have a 9 by 18 as a standard, but you want to have a 22 or 24 foot wide driveway area so that you're parking on both sides plus the driveway adds up to 60 feet. And I think your standards are good, but what we spotted also, our traffic engineer said the same thing. You don't need a 9 by 20. 9 by 18 is the standard.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, so
Good.
yeah, we'll work on revising the zoning regs, getting you new revised copies, and then working on the public workshop presentation, and getting that to you for your review as well.
Yeah, I think, Sarah, we'll try to get you all the text. I mean, let's prioritize that first so you can get it up online, and then gives us a few more days to work on the PowerPoint and try to get all your comments in. Your decisions make that PowerPoint now a little bit, I think, more straightforward.
Okay, so I would just say for the commission, Monday, April 13th, if you could, and I'll send out an email reminder tomorrow, but if you could let me know what topics you are not comfortable, talking about at the roundtable discussions at the public workshop, so then that way I have a couple days to assign everybody and give you guys a heads up of what you need to study before the public workshop.
Okay.
Sure. One other comment on the parking. I don't know if you saw in my notes, I had a footnote on the parking to check out the Westport parking guidelines. They have some additional diagrams, radius requirements, curb cut requirements, dead end parking diagrams. Might we want to include some supplemental information on ours, just so we don't end up with what I'm trying to avoid is like I'm thinking back to the 4 cluster homes that are next to the Richmond Hill parking lot that we
Oh,
approved.
yeah.
I don't know, whatever that was, 6, 7 years ago, and really tight driveway, but really tight maneuvering spaces in the parking area in front of the garages. And we've had a couple of developments like that where we don't have anything in our guidelines dictating it. So the developers are like, oh yeah, it's fine. It's 8 feet wide and there's no turnaround circle and they'll have to do a 12-point turn to get out of the driveway, but that's fine.
Yeah.
But we
Well,
can't challenge it.
We can take a look at those, Dan.
Yeah,
I'm
take
glad
a
you
look
said
at
West-
Westport.
I'm glad you said Westport and not Norwalk. Because I would
No.
not borrow from Norwalk. Their parking regs don't work very well.
Yeah, no, Westport's got they're pretty. It's 4 simple diagrams or 4 pages of diagrams, but they're and they're kind of like ours. They were hand drawn probably 30 years ago, but they work.
Yeah.
Take a look at that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
okay.
was where I was going is they just restriped an area near my office and it's impossible to drive now. And our town has nothing but SUVs everywhere. So they make it smaller. It's just even harder for people to get around. And it seems like they just cut corners. So if there's other things that Westport's done, I think that'd be great.
Yep.
Good. Yeah, we'll look at them. We'll look at them next week. Our parking. Well, I'll email them. My partner who is an expert on these is currently skiing in the Alps. So but he's on his email. So I'll get the Westport stuff and I'll review it with him.
Okay. Sounds good.
Great.
Thank you all for your time. Be in
Right.
touch soon.
Thank you. Appreciate your patience and have a great night, everyone.
No, yeah, thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Yep. Bye-bye now.